For the past few weeks, we have been discussing the discontinuation of the physical LDS practice of plural marriage or polygamy. Remembering, of course, that the doctrine of the practice is still included in their present-day scriptures, and that LDS today continue to have women sealed to them spiritually in their temples. Well, last week we mentioned that once Mormons achieved statehood for the Utah Territory, the LDS made a renewed effort to reinstitute plural marriage, even though the introduction of legislation, through the introduction of legislation called the Evans Bill. So they became a state, and then they tried to bring this Evans Bill in that would refute the Tucker Act and would help polygamy start to come back in once they became a state. Word got out that what they were trying to do, and interested parties in the nation rose up and revolt against the LDS underhanded ways. This revolt culminated in what is known as the Reed-Smoot case, which was an in-depth investigation into Mormonism by a Senate committee. The committee wanted to know things like, are the church and state one in Utah? Does the Mormon church, control the conduct of its members? Does Mormonism encourage polygamy and cohabitation? Would the temple oaths the LDS take supersede a Mormon's loyalty to the American government? The answers? Yes, 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 and yes. The Smoot hearings lasted 3 years and produced more than 3,000 pages of transcript and truly exposed much about Mormon culture, history, and theology. One of the major focuses of the investigation was to answer the question, could Senator Smoot, who was a high-ranking authority in the LDS Church, an apostle, also be loyal to America? Central to this teaching was the LDS teachings, which were prevalent at the time, that all faithful Mormons were to swear an oath of vengeance against the United States for the shed blood of Joseph Smith. The LDS doctrine of blood atonement was closely tied to their taking this oath in the temple. The oath of vengeance appears to have originated in June of 1845 when the quorum of 12 apostles gathered in a prayer circle and uttered a prayer of vengeance against those who shed Joseph Smith's blood. 6 months later, this prayer became part of the LDS temple endowment ceremony, and from there, vengeance became a major thread in the fabric of early Mormonism. Hence, we had Mountain Meadows. Several Mormon hymns were composed and sung regularly that included themes of vengeance. I forgot to bring those with me. Maybe next week I can start off with those numbers which they sing in their hymnals about getting revenge upon the nation, upon the people who martyred Joseph Smith. It's part of their worship, actually, in their sacrament services way back when. The oath of vengeance remained in LDS temples for 70 years until February of 1927, when Apostle George F. Richards sent a letter to all temple presidents and told them to omit the oath of revenge part of the prayer ritual that went on in the temples. Because of this late date of 1927, there is a certainty that Senator Smoot had taken the oath of vengeance and was therefore compromised as either a Mormon or as a senator, depending on where his allegiances lay and to whom he was willing to lie to. Hypothetically speaking, if any LDS man or woman ever ran for office of the U.S. president, the same conflict would exist. Would his or her allegiance be to Mormonism and its prophet, who is supposed to, according to Ezra Taft Benson, have the ultimate say in all things temporal, secular, and spiritual, or would his or her allegiance be to the United States and its people? This is a gigantic concern with enormous implications in this day and age, as the LDS Church is doing all it can to obscure this allegiance. Another fact that was brought forth by the Reed-Smoot hearings was the LDS belief that non-Mormon people are unfit to govern the masses. By 1904, Mormons had been declaring that, one, a just political system can only originate from God. I might agree with that. But they also claim that the authority to lead humanity rests solely with the men holding the LDS priesthood, and the keys to all knowledge and power are located only within the confines of the LDS priesthood. To say the least, the Mormon stance was disconcerting to this Senate committee. In addition to all this, the old issue of polygamy took a tremendous amount of limelight in the Smoot case too. The first witness called by the Senate committee was the 6th LDS president, Joseph F. Smith. During his testimony, which lasted over 5 days, President Smith admitted that some LDS leaders had, in fact, defied federal laws and the church manifesto against taking on additional wives. Responding to his own violation of the same defiance, the 6th prophet, seer, and revelator of the Mormon church admitted, quote, "I have cohabitated with my wives, not openly, that is, not in a manner that it would be offensive to my neighbors, but I have acknowledged them, I have visited them." This was under the auspices of polygamy and cohabitation to have been made illegal by the federal government and the Mormon church. The 6th president of the church came and admitted to the Senate that he had, in fact, cohabitated with them. President Smith failed to mention that he had also strongly promoted defiance against the federal laws to other Latter-day Saints, and that he also performed polygamous sealings himself for the benefit of other leading men in the church. However, and this is important, the Mormon president also neglected to admit under oath that what he did privately was very, very different from what he said and did publicly. In a series of outright lies, the prophet and seer claimed that, quote, "no one had for years been authorized to perform any such marriages." This was not true. That he did not know of any such cases, not true. And that, to his knowledge, no plural marriages were taking place in the church, either in the U.S. or in any other country. These were lies, lies, and lies. This is the heart of the matter when it comes to the Mormon religious institution. Its political machinations, its environment of deception, and its corporate decisions to deceive, all in the name, a concerted effort to protect the church. And Jesus said, "Who is the father of all lies?" The deceptions and lies unearthed at the Smoot hearings continued, all in an effort to protect the church. Apostle Mariner Merrill swore under oath that he had not taken any plural wives since 1890. Swore, apostle, under oath. He took one as late as 1901. The other absurd testimonies came forth. Apostle John Henry Smith testified he could remember very little about anything that happened since the manifesto for polygamy came out, including how many children were born to him since that time. The so-called apostle said of the Lord, defending his amnesia, he said, "It is, quote, it is a matter with which I have never charged myself regarding dates. The date to my own birth has always been a little mixed up in my mind." LDS member Margaret Geddes swore she was an unwed mother, but declined to identify the father of her child. The Senate committee accepted her testimony as truth. Then in 1912, when the richest man in Utah, David Eccles, died, she immediately filed a paternity suit and swore that she had been sealed by an LDS apostle to Eccles in 1898, 5 years before she swore she was unwed before the Senate committee. Lies, lies, lies. Exactly how many post-manifesto marriages took place is unknown, because LDS records were changed to make all the post-manifesto marriages look like they had taken place prior to the manifesto coming out. Apostle Francis Lyman told the committee that fellow apostle Senator Smoot was ignorant of his polygamous wives, but that the general population of Utah was well aware of the fact. When questioned about the absurdity of such a statement, Apostle Francis Lyman said, quote, "I think it is accepted as a fact by Mr. Smoot, but I do not think he knows it." The ridiculousness of this statement caused the committee members to burst out laughing. This caused Lyman to contradict his statement, but to justify his idiocy by saying that the Spirit of the Lord directed him to say what he had said in his answers. One Senator Howar asked Apostle Lyman, "Did the Spirit of the Lord direct you to make the answer which you just took back and said was a mistake?" Apostle Lyman could not respond. These are all apostles, men who call themselves apostles of the Lord Jesus Christ. lying before the Senate committee, lying before every question they're getting about their polygamous activities, about their extra wives, about their cohabitation. A Christian would stand up, if a Christian believed in polygamy, and it was a Christian edict, a Christian would stand up and say, I practice polygamy. That's all there is to it. You're going to be put to death, then I'm put to death. It's the same premise. Do you believe in Jesus Christ? Yes, I do. Do you believe that you're saved by grace? Yes, I do. Do you know we're going to kill you for it? Yes, I do. It's happened throughout the ages. LDS, lie. There's the difference. Through all of this, it was apparent by the 1890 manifesto issued by the LDS prophet, seer, and revelator, it was only a ruse. Self-proclaimed apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ and United States Senator Reed Smoot himself also lied under oath. He swore he had never heard, quote, never heard a discussion of plural marriage in the meetings of the apostles. Today, when we go back and look at those meetings records, we can see Smoot was in at least 16 meetings where not only was polygamy discussed, but Smoot himself made comments on it, including if it was universally practiced, it would save the world from sorrow and distress. He also stated in a meeting that he, quote, looked forward to its restoration. On several occasions, Senator and Apostle Smoot advised others on how to avoid arrest for the practice. Despite these dishonors, Smoot held his position in Washington for 30 years, eventually becoming one of the most powerful of all congressmen in the government. The Senate committee voted 7-5 against Reed Smoot retaining his seat in the Senate. But by the time the report was presented and debated before the actual Senate in 1907, Smoot had established many friends in Congress, including a relationship with President Teddy Roosevelt. At this point in LDS history, we witness a dramatic and impressive shift. A shift from its foundations of magic, violence, and multiple wives to new power in politics and the prestige of personality. Where powerful seeds of Mormon persuasion were now firmly planted in Washington, D.C. soils, Utah Mormonism was beginning to split apart. Some of the saints, preferring to progress into an age of a single spouse and multiple bank accounts, and others, refusing to abandon the vision and teachings of Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, chose to stay with what those men taught was eternally true, polygamy. Enter the rise of Mormon fundamentalism.